what even happens? Does one person see this and think it's good? Does like 1,000 people? Does nobody see this? Like right now, this is kind of a goofy passion project more so than anything else. The inspiration to the game is essentially a social media storm that happened with Pirate Software, and essentially his situation with a lot of things, with World of Warcraft, with the game that he has coming out, with the way that he's responded to a lot of his criticism. And we're trying to kind of integrate every step of that into our game in a way that is funny and kind of referential to those things, but also kind of makes sense in terms of like what's actually fun to play. And that's kind of like why I was really, for example, insistent on one of our weapons being a paintbrush, is essentially because he's known for, you know, drawing these like schematics out on Microsoft Paint. This is such a core, you know, integral part of the character. We have to keep this in. You know, in the teasers, we have his dad show up, and his dad gives him a lot of the weapons. His dad is actually owning the store where you buy all the weapons for your character, and it's just like a bunch of tongue-in-cheek jokes that I hope are taken in stride. But they are what they are in terms of just kind of being referential to that controversy in as best a light as we can, just kind of a parody of the situation. The core design, we started from like a really goofy kind of idea of what if you're 100% right? What if, like, you know, everyone who's coming after you is kind of this like dumb goon, and you're like a valiant hero who has to defend yourself from all of them. And we kind of iterated on that as just like the joke idea of the game. But that's not design. That's kind of like just the art direction of it. The design of it is something that we have an idea of what we want to go forward with. And we're looking at a bunch of different games that are in the same kind of category. We're inspired by Gungeon, we're inspired by Hotline Miami, we're inspired even by like Risk of Rain. And so that's kind of a conversation we're having at every stage of the development, is like, how would this change what's fun for the player, you know? And that's kind of guiding everything that we're talking about. We're talking about, okay, so there's enemies, should they be one shot? Should they be a couple shots? You know, because those games are like distinctly different in that way. There's kind of pros and cons to either side. To give an example, I was talking to our designer, I was saying Gungeon has a lot of like different novelty weapons, but the fun in the game, to me, is just finding the weapons. Actually doing the game is a lot of like chores, it really feels like. It's kind of hitting enemies that take up a lot of shots, and they are really hard to kill. Not really hard to kill, but they just have a lot of health. And in Hotline Miami, it's exactly the opposite, where the guns and the weapons that you're using are like a steel pipe, a knife, a shotgun with 3 shots, but everything is one hit. And so every moment of the gameplay is actually the fun part, but there's not a lot of novelty, there's not a lot of replay value. So that's what we're talking about, pros and cons of, like, you know, I want to sit here and say like, oh, well, you know, Brainiac Mastermind, we're just going to do both and kind of outweigh both, you know, only get pros. But that's not really how it's going to work. So we're looking at that. We're starting with, you know, we have like 10 people who want to play test the game. And so we're going to issue it out on Test Flight and on, you know, Steam, like internal Steam play testing for people to be able to take a look at that. And we're just gonna like see what people say of like, I'm not the arbiter of what people find to be fun, and we're gonna iterate on that and kind of almost have like a conversation with players of what's the best version of this game, I think is the main point. So far we have like a core gameplay loop that we have in terms of being able to have enemies spawn, being able to switch between your different weapons, being able to walk around and repair the walls. We're kind of seeing this as like, a long time ago, I promised my girlfriend that we would make a Call of Duty Zombies game. And so in a weird kind of selfish way, I almost see this as like a step to that. This is kind of a top-down Call of Duty Zombies game. That being said, there's a lot for us to do in terms of right now we're getting into items and how those items kind of affect your gameplay. From the art side, we have our artist who has put out essentially a shot list for our teaser trailer. The teaser trailer is hopefully supposed to just kind of gauge interest in, you know, what people think about this concept, if people are interested. I'm preparing myself for nobody having seen it. But I don't know, maybe a couple people see it and they're like, you know, this is kind of interesting. Why don't you keep going? Give us some suggestions. And we go down that path. We're going to continue regardless, just because we'll see it through. At this point, we're too deep. I'll start with probably the easiest question to answer, which is how long do you want to be working on it? Which is, I think, there's the thing of like art projects are never finished. You just eventually stop working on them. So there's like a million things that we want to do, you know, especially at this point, with balancing, with different enemy types, with different maps, with different levels, possibly with different characters that you can start playing with co-op. We want to be able to do that. We want to do split screen co-op. So you want to do controllers. So, you know, so it's like there's a road to hell there that's paved with the good intentions of wanting to make a good game. But that's all like very contingent on what even happens. Does one person see this and think it's good? Does like 1,000 people? Does nobody see this? Like right now, this is kind of a goofy passion project more so than anything else. We have to release quickly because one of the things that we're teasing is essentially the idea of like a person having a game in early access for 11, 12 years, something like that. Originally, I wanted us to launch, I think I thought of this idea a month ago, and I wanted us to launch in like October, so like 2 or 3 months of time. I don't know if that's gonna work out just because our artist was finishing a game, and so he hasn't been able to work on it full time. So currently our artist is, you know, 5 to 10 hours a week. I'm visualizing it as like, we'll probably get the teaser trailer out inside the next month and then gauge people's reactions to it, but it just takes time. It just takes time for us to be able to put stuff together, for us to be able to iterate on it, especially because we want to put it out right. And I worry it's, again, a pros and cons thing. I don't want us to spend too much time and just kind of like lose contact with what people are actually finding fun. But I also don't want us to put out a bad game and have people just be like, what is this slop? Like what, you know, what have you put out here? So we'll see. We're trying to move on it as quickly as we can.